Welcome to episode 31 of the 5-Minute Warfare podcast. Just a quick heads up before we get into the episode. This show is getting a new name. We're rebranding as Compact Warfare, part of the new Compact Histories network. You can find us at compactwarfare.com, which will take you straight to our new home under compacthistories.com. There's nothing for you to do as the episodes will stay right here in your feed. Just look out for the new branding and links to the new website. Right, with that being said, let's get on with episode 31, the War of the Spanish Succession. Imagine this. A king dies without an heir. A vast global empire hangs in the balance, and suddenly, all of Europe is sharpening swords, signing treaties, and preparing for war. It sounds like the plot of a medieval soap opera. But it's real history. Welcome to the War of the Spanish Succession, a 13-year conflict that saw continents clash, kings scheme, and Europe's balance of power forever reshaped. It all began with the death of Charles II of Spain in 1700. Charles wasn't exactly the picture of health, frail, sickly, and plagued by decades of political instability. But his death left behind a colossal problem. No children and no clear successor to the Spanish throne. Now, Spain wasn't just Spain at this point. The Spanish Empire stretched across Europe, the Americas, and beyond. Whoever inherited that throne wouldn't just rule Spain, they'd control a global empire. And that made the question of succession a powder keg for the rest of Europe. Before his death, Charles II made a controversial decision. He named Philip of Anjou as his successor, a man with a particularly important family connection. Philip just happened to be the grandson of Louis XIV, the King of France, also known as the Sun King, and one of the most ambitious monarchs in European history. If Philip of Anjou, now Philip V, took the Spanish throne, it created the very real possibility of France and Spain joining forces under one powerful Bourbon dynasty. For France, that sounded fantastic. For the rest of Europe? Not so much. The idea of a united Franco-Spanish superpower sent shockwaves through the continent. Other European nations feared that such a union would tip the delicate balance of power completely in France's favour. If Louis XIV got his way, France would dominate Europe, politically, militarily, and economically. And so, alliances started to form. The Grand Alliance was born, a coalition determined to stop Louis XIV's growing influence. This alliance included England, soon to become Great Britain after the Act of Union in 1707, along with the Dutch Republic, the Holy Roman Empire, and various German and Italian states. Their mission? Prevent the unification of the French and Spanish crowns and stop France from becoming the uncontested heavyweight champion of Europe. What followed was one of Europe's first truly global conflicts, the War of the Spanish Succession. And while it might sound like a mouthful, it boiled down to a familiar story: power, politics, and a whole lot of battlefield action. The war officially kicked off in 1701, and over the next 13 years, Europe became a chessboard of military campaigns, sieges, and shifting allegiances. One of the standout figures of the war was John Churchill, better known as the Duke of Marlborough. Marlborough was a military mastermind, leading Allied forces to some of their most important victories. Take the Battle of Blenheim in 1704, for example. Marlborough, alongside Prince Eugene of Savoy, delivered a crushing blow to French and Bavarian forces. Blenheim wasn't just another skirmish, it prevented France from overrunning Vienna, a strategic win that kept the Holy Roman Empire firmly in the fight. More victories followed for the Grand Alliance. At the Battle of Ramillies in 1706 and the Battle of Oudenarde in 1708, Marlborough's leadership helped the Allies secure key territories and disrupt French control in regions like the Spanish Netherlands, which roughly corresponds to modern-day Belgium. But this wasn't just a European affair. Across the Atlantic, in North America, the conflict played out under a different name: Queen Anne's War. There, British, French, and Spanish forces clashed in colonial skirmishes, with control over territories like Newfoundland, Acadia, and the Carolinas hanging in the balance. These colonial clashes were smaller in scale compared to the massive European battles, but they planted the seeds for future rivalries, particularly between Britain and France, that would eventually explode into conflicts like the 7 Years' War. Back in Europe, the war dragged on. Despite the victories, maintaining the Grand Alliance wasn't easy. War is expensive, exhausting, and politically complicated. Over time, cracks began to show. Britain, for example, saw a shift in leadership when the Tory party came to power in 1710. The new government was less enthusiastic about endless conflict and started pushing for peace. France wasn't exactly thriving either. Years of war, economic strain, and even famine had weakened Louis XIV's kingdom. By this point, everyone was looking for a way out, as long as they could save face. The turning point came when Philip V of Spain, the very man whose succession started the whole mess, agreed to renounce any future claim to the French throne. This cooled fears of a Bourbon superpower and opened the door to negotiations. In 1713, the Treaty of Utrecht was signed, followed by the Treaty of Rastatt in 1714. These agreements didn't just end the fighting, they redrew the map of Europe and reshaped global empires. Under the terms of the treaties, Philip V kept the Spanish throne, but Spain and France would remain separate. Britain came out with significant gains, including Gibraltar and Minorca, which boosted its naval power in the Mediterranean. The Austrian Habsburgs, meanwhile, took control of territories like Naples, Milan, and the Spanish Netherlands. France lost some of its North American holdings, further setting the stage for British colonial expansion, and the once mighty Spanish Empire started a long, slow decline. Perhaps the most lasting legacy of the War of the Spanish Succession was the idea of balance, the notion that no single nation should dominate Europe. It's a principle that would guide European politics for the next century, though, as history often shows, it's easier said than done. So, what started as a royal family drama turned into a global power struggle, with new borders, new empires, and lessons that shaped the modern world. I hope you enjoyed that episode of 5-Minute Warfare from 5minutewarfare.com. If you did, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts, and while you're there, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you would like to support us more directly, please consider buying us a coffee. Head on over to 5minutewarfare.com/coffee to see how. You may also be interested in our other 5-minute podcasts. Check them out at 5minuteproductions.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.